Amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But under the right circumstances, a producer could make more money with a flop than he could with a hit. Yes, it's quite possible.
Welcome to the NFC East Show, the only show keeping the NFC East honest. I can't believe it. Williams is back.
I'm back.
It took one dub to get him
crawling
back. One dub and he broke his silent protest broke. How you feeling, man?
I'm chilling. I'm at a pool right now, so apologies for any. I don't know.
You're the only person I know that would ever apologize for being in a pool.
Well,
All right, let's wild week. The opposite of what usually happens in the NFC East.
The Giants win
this week, which is not only do the Giants win, but there's 3 wins in general. When's the last time we talked about 3 wins?
That's actually a really good question. I'm gonna look that up while you go here.
The only team throwing an L this week were my Philadelphia Eagles, but honestly, we'll get into it. I don't necessarily think there's a lot of negatives you can draw losing to the Chiefs the way a lot of teams lose to the Chiefs, like the way the Eagles lost to the Chiefs. But let's talk about Washington, Atlanta first, because that game, very bizarre. Did not go. None of the games went exactly as I predicted. I did hit all of them besides Giants Falcons, but I thought Washington would have been a little bit more of a dominant display, but they left it until the death of the game to take the go-ahead score, beating the Falcons, I think, by 4 on that last Antonio Gibson scamper into the end zone. What's your takeaway from that? Like, for me, a lot of weird Heineke hero ball going on throughout the entire game, trying to get keep Washington in it. The defense is looking not great. But yet they're still 2-2 and only 1 game out of first, which is, I think, roughly where you probably peg them against the Cowboys at this point of the year anyway. So I don't know what to make of this team.
Yeah, I think if you were high on Washington, like both of us were, you're starting to feel a little bit chastened by the defensive regression. You know, it's kind of annoying, honestly, how in the modern NFL you can't count on defenses being good year to year. It just feels like offenses dictate everything. I'm sure we'll talk about that more when we get to the Philly Chiefs game. But if I were a Washington fan right now, I'd feel pretty disheartened. You know, 2-2 is not a bad place to be. Obviously, it's still very much in it. And I do think that there's plenty of time for this defense to figure itself out and get its legs under it. But Atlanta is still a bad football team. I mean, I think that they're getting better every week, as most bad football teams do, finding themselves a little bit. But it's hard to feel really good coming out of that one if you're a Washington fan, knowing that this is a team that before the season you'd expect to dominate.
Watching Atlanta, it's just been funny. We've now talked about them 3 times in 4 weeks. It feels like they're almost a part of our division at this point. Every game, Cordero Patterson has had more and more of a role, and it's been really funny to watch. It was it seems like the least obvious offensive game plan, let's just give our shifty former wide receiver that can sometimes play running back the ball a lot and see what happens. But it did not work at all against the Eagles. It kind of worked against the Giants, and then he eviscerates Washington's defense. It's nuts.
I think I'm conflating Cordero Patterson with Percy Harvin here, but I thought Cordero Patterson was 37 years old. It's really weird to see him have this prominent of a feature role within our narrative this year.
He's got to go off at this point, just like the exponential increase of Cordarrelle Patterson. He's got to go off for like over 200 yards of total offense and like 4 TDs against the Cowboys.
He's going to look like prime Jim Brown against the
Cowboys. It's destined. But yeah, I mean, the defense, like I said, I want to reserve judgment against the defense until the last quarter of the year. I think in general, NFL defenses don't start really finding themselves and finding what they do well against what offenses are now trying this year in the NFL until like the last 4 to 8 games of the season, which is exactly what Washington did last year too.
Yeah.
I think that Washington's defense deserves to find itself just like every other defense has to do in this league. Like even the defenses that came out hot with turnovers on other teams like Pittsburgh and Carolina, who had a hot defense the first 3 weeks of the year and then got eviscerated by Dallas, right? Like, you know, I think it's probably more damning that Washington fans expect this much out of the defense this early because of how their offense doesn't pick up the slack than it is really about how bad the defense is, you know?
Yeah.
I gotta say, last week was not the Heineke buy button game. I don't think this week is either, but this was another one of his fun games. I liked seeing him run around.
He's so fun every week. It's unbelievable how fun he is.
I like seeing him run around like an idiot and just chuck a prayer up to Terry McLaurin in the back of the end zone and have it work. That's some prime NFC East football right there.
What I really like about him is it's weird that Fitzpatrick is on the same team because he has similar Fitzpatrick vibes that he's like, usually when a backup quarterback gets like premier, you're already laughing because you know it's the case. Usually they like play it super safe. Like it's all just like little like, okay, I'm terrified, I'm doing this stuff. And then you have Heineke who's like, I don't even care. I don't care if I get cut tomorrow. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to me that Washington fans have conflated this self-confidence with like elite quarterback play and that they're totally behind him.
Yeah. In the same way Gary Shandling is the comedian's comedian, Taylor Heineke is the quarterback's backup quarterback.
It's incredible.
Just
it feels like
a true like art, craftsman really understands the role.
He feels like a con artist to me. like somebody who's like trying to like sell you on like his mindset bullshit. Except like it's working and you're mad about that. You know?
Oh man. Well, another NFC South matchup in the division next week. The Saints are taking on Washington. Really interesting game to try and preview, given how the Saints surprisingly lost to your New York Giants this past week. You can't really go into the game saying they're not beatable, but I also have a tough time just outright saying Washington's going to beat the Saints, given how much trouble they had with Atlanta last week. So I don't know what to make of this right now. Also, weird parallel paths going directly from Atlanta to New Orleans, just like the Giants did 1 week delayed too. You know?
Does it ever feel like the NFC East schedule makers just like phone it in for us?
Yeah.
Maybe every team feels this way, and it's just the nature of like the NFL schedule. But it really, when you start following like the whole division and seeing the patterns, you're like, all right, this was like a little like
on the nose.
We were an afterthought here. We're like, oh yeah, just make Atlanta play everybody 4 weeks straight, whatever. We'll move on. Like,
so yeah, what are you thinking for Saints Washington?
I think this feels like a toss-up game to me. It's hard for me to know where the Saints are. They've had some stupid big wins and also some stupid losses. Like they beat Green Bay 38-3, and then they get beaten by Carolina by 20, and they just lost to the Giants. Like something's funky there. But it's in Washington, which I think might actually hurt Washington, knowing that stadium. But I'm gonna go with the football team because I picked them to be 12-5, and that starts to look incredibly stupid if they lose this week. So I gotta.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I think the Saints will bounce back this week. I think it'll be close though. I think the thing that's selling me on in my mind is like the Saints paradoxically didn't look bad against the Giants in that loss. Like I say paradoxically because anyone who loses to the Giants should look bad in the process.
Yes.
But like it wasn't, at least for, I mean, the Saints offense has been the thing that has like come and gone, and they really didn't make, perhaps like the biggest mistake they made is just not scoring more, but they didn't turn the ball over. Like they had some pretty good drives. Jameis had some good deep throws against the Giants. Like I don't know. I think if that same offense shows up, I think Washington has less to offer on their offensive side than New York does. And I think ultimately I'm now giving my like Giant Saints review in the form of my Washington Saints preview. Yeah. But I think ultimately, I think the Giants offense is what won the game against the Saints, and I don't think Washington's offense is as good.
Okay. So you're going to be the pessimist here.
I'm going to say Saints 24, Washington 17.
Okay. I like it. I'll give a score. I'll go, it's got to be dutiful Washington. If you're going to pick Washington to win, it's got to be dutiful. So I think 20-17 Washington this week. It's just one of those weeks where the Saints don't show up.
Dutiful. Love it. If that happens, that means the defense has arrived, I think.
Yeah, that's also kind of what I'm like. Jameis is like, he's gettable. He's not super mobile in the pocket. Like he can be forced into mistakes. Obviously, the notorious 30 interception season, and he's had LASIK since then or whatever. Who cares? But I think this is a week where the defense can really start to feel good about themselves. I agree. Also,
one last Saints take. Maybe I'll save it because we get to talk about them again later. Let's talk about the Eagles. Eagles lose a route to the Kansas City Chiefs. The thing I said last week is I expect them to lose by like 20 as long as they didn't embarrass themselves. And honestly, against the Chiefs, I don't think it was that embarrassing of a game for the Eagles. Like I know, at least for what I'm expecting from this team this year, they got a lot of what was putrid against the Cowboys corrected to a certain extent. The offense was moving the ball. There were 3 touchdowns called back for penalties. There's a lot of things going wrong. It would be interesting to see if those penalties didn't happen, how much more of a tighter boat race it could have been. But there's no way the Eagles defense was pumping the brakes on this dynastic Chiefs offense. And even though the Chiefs were coming in 1-2, it was 1-2 with the Chiefs offense looking like the Chiefs offense is, and I don't know. I saw progression from Jalen Hurts. I saw a better game plan on offense from Nick Sirianni. The defense has no talent. As you correctly identified, you previewed this team or the season, and like no talent and kind of average coaching and game plan on defense means you get lit up in 4 for 45 points.
Yeah, like for sure. That's kind of one of my things too. It's hard to rag on the defense too much because any first-year defensive coordinator who doesn't have like his personnel in the building, it can be hard to draw that conclusions, especially to your point this early in the season, like especially maybe a more complex defense. I don't exactly know what the Eagles are doing back there yet, but like a more complex defense is something that's going to take time, but it could pay big dividends later. I think the real thing here for me is just it's hard to get big takeaways regarding Philly because it felt like such a Chiefs game. Like, the Chiefs off. It's like, okay, was your defense atrocious or is the Chiefs offense just completely unstoppable? And on the other side of the ball, is the offense looking better, or is the Chiefs defense just like a completely porous, attackable unit? And so it's just they're so binary in those sides of the ball that I think, yeah, you got to be happy that it was a relatively close game. I think if it were in Arrowhead, I'd feel way better about it. Losing in the Link is never a good time, but I mean, this feels like chalk for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say, I do think the Chiefs' defense is a porous, beatable unit, but I think that the Eagles' offense was also beating themselves against the Cowboys as much as the Cowboys' defense was beating them on Monday Night Football last week. So to at least see that, improvement against a defense that was giving you the space to improve, I think is a positive one can draw if you're going into this Eagles season not really expecting playoffs and just really expecting a level set on is Hurts the guy and is Sirianni the guy to pair him with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it wasn't a perfect game from either of them, but I think you're starting to see, in general, improvements week over week through 4 weeks.
I'm glad you pulled off on your Hurts situation has returned.
I mean, do you want me to? I'm stuck by it.
No. I mean, do what you want, but
I mean, to be honest with you, I still think a lot of the problems were there. He had a really bad pick in the first half. He's still still not very good on a lot of bread and butter throws.
He missed Ertz or Goddard in the end zone. It was early enough in the game to be forgiven, but like on an easy, he just kind of overthrew him.
Yeah, it's these weird like 5-yard like hitch and slant routes. He doesn't put it in the breadbasket. 9 times out of 10. His best throws, honestly, are like he's very good at, I think, seam routes. He's got a strong enough arm to drive the ball in 10 to 15 yards, but he doesn't have the placement yet. If he adds that to his game, like if he just is a very crisp, like short yardage passer on screens and slants, I think the rest of the playbook kind of opens up to him. But he does kill drives, and I think he deserves criticism for that right now.
Yeah,
he's doing it kind of single-handedly. That's the one thing that's making it hard for me, because it's like there's so much roasting of Sirianni's play calling, especially after last week, especially this week, and it's really hard for me to critique play calling if the building block plays that should be easy money aren't being executed. It's like if you can't complete a 5-yard slant consistently because your quarterback can't put it in there, that truly does limit what you can or can do as a play caller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's I don't know how much of that is situational and how much of that is just like ineptitude. But I think a lot less of it happened this week. It was still there, but a lot less happened. So I'm chalking it up as a process Sixer style moral victory against the Chiefs.
I dig it. Yeah. I mean, I think Hurts is a guy who in many ways would fit better on like the Giants roster than the Eagles one in terms of the receiver skill set and kind of what you're asking guys to do. My only other takeaway is really I do think Devontae Smith is the real deal. He's shown flashes. I also think it doesn't really matter that he's the real deal, but he's clearly just like a great wide receiving talent.
Yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed. If there's one thing I'm going to like really rag on Sirianni for, that I think he deserved, like the one roast of him that I think is entirely deserved, is this guy is a career wide receivers coach. Mm-hmm. And we've managed to have 2 touchdowns called back because wide receivers were forced out of bounds and came back into play in the first 4 weeks of the season.
How is that happening all the time?
I don't know.
Is he
this dude?
Is this like something?
The one guy that prevents that from ever happening.
Do you think he's like encouraging this? He's like, just maybe they won't notice. It gives us. It's definitely an advantage if a ref doesn't notice. But.
Oh yeah, it's totally an advantage. But you'd think you'd learn after the first time. That's not a good tactic. If that's what he was trying,
It's kind of like how the Legion of Boom, Pete Carroll was like, they can't call PI like every time type philosophy. It's like that,
maybe,
but for running out of bounds.
Maybe he learned it in San Diego, where like no one paid attention to anything.
Right.
Now he's in Philly.
You know my San Diego theory. So
does the audience know your San Diego theory?
Yeah, this is a powder keg for debate. So I don't even want to get into the Philip Rivers backstory of the theory. But basically, nobody cares what happens in San Diego, and so the national media and our general perception of San Diego is far more generous than it would be if that exact same situation was transplanted into anywhere north of like the Maryland border. Really, that's it. Maybe. It's not rocket science. I just think the Chargers get off easy, and they don't win because there's no pressure on them to win.
Yeah. And really being the second team in LA is basically being in San Diego anyway. That you might as well live in San Diego if you're the second fiddle.
Right. Yeah. You know, the whole LA thing, they're still San Diego to me. And it really hurts that they took them away from San Diego because I think the chill vibes were perfect there. You know, you go 9-7, you lose in the first round of the playoffs, you go home. Nobody's really mad about it.
Now, here's a question for you. How much were Phillip Rivers' stats padded because wide receivers were able to run 2 yards out of bounds?
It's impossible.
Without being punished.
This is such an incredible supplement to my thesis. It's impossible to know. Maybe all of them.
We have to go back and watch.
Yeah,
have to
watch
crunch
the tape.
Numbers, watch tape.
Get the all 22.
unlike the NFL officiating office would during those years.
Right. Oh man, that's so good.
All right. Eagles got the Panthers next. Another NFC South matchup. Another team. Cowboys have only played the Panthers, right? That's the only NFC's team.
That's right. Yeah.
But still, another NFC's back-to-back for an NFC South team.
Yep.
I don't know. I think that the Panthers are not the Chiefs. They are more beatable than the Chiefs for the Eagles, especially if the Eagles continue to improve week over week. That being said, they're also much better than the Eagles have been through 4 weeks, so it's really hard for me to say that it will be an Eagles win. I hope for another non-blowout that's competitive and the offense looks good. But, I mean, even losing to the Cowboys, and we'll talk about that game immediately after this, but, like, I don't think the Panthers look bad in that game enough to be like, oh, this is a team that went off the rails, and finally lost its luster. I think they'll show up and give the Eagles a game. I think it's probably a Panthers win, but it's going to be close, and I think it's going to be high scoring. It'll probably be something like 31-23, maybe with an extra score. Maybe something like 35-28 or something.
You just double dipping on the score predictions now?
I'm just saying. It'll be a one touchdown game. I don't know whether it's like, I don't know how many touchdowns there will be.
Yeah, I think the best case scenario for the Eagles is like they're kind of where the Panthers were last year, which is like clearly like becoming a well-coached team that just doesn't have the experience in place yet or the QB play or whatever. And then next year they can look like this year's Panthers, which is like, okay, like Matt Rule is just obviously a very good coach. Like clearly when he has his guys, he just makes it work. It's in Carolina, so I got to go Carolina here. I think it could be close, and I think it could be very high scoring. I'll go with like an absurdly high score just for fun. I think it'll be 41 points. Sam Darnold throws 5 passing TDs. All your Jets fans lie to themselves about how much pain they're in. So like 41-33 Carolina.
Honestly, I'd throw myself in the sword and take a 1-4 Eagles start to the season if it meant being able to troll my Jets fan friends for a lifetime about Sam Darnold.
We both liked. Am I wrong in saying we both liked Sam Darnold?
I like Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I liked him too. It seemed pretty clear like he could be a guy. This is all pretty much based off of one preseason game he had against the Giants in like 19 or something, and I drafted him in the last round of like every fantasy draft. And then I think he threw like 4 picks.
Yeah, did you forget Adam Gase was his coach when you made that decision?
It was just one of those things where it's like, hey, he looked really good in this 8 minutes of preseason against the terrible Giants team. Like, but yeah, it's just clearly a situation where like, just another example of how quarterbacks can be betrayed by their situation. And so much is contingent on that.
For sure.
Anyway,
all right, let's talk about. We got one divisional game coming up, and it's a big one.
Oh, Lordy. Yeah.
Giants Cowboys are coming up. Let's talk about these two teams and what they did last week before we talk about this.
Yeah.
Cowboys Panthers. Another, dare I say, dominant game from the Cowboys offense.
Yeah, they're looking really good.
What's pretty incredible watching them is like how predictable they are, and you just can't beat them, which is like usually a sign of like a pretty good team. They're not doing anything. They still lack that vertical dimension that I complained about them not having in like week 1 and week 2, but they almost don't need it because both Zeke and Pollard are guaranteed 8 to 12 yards rushing every down, and it's just really opening up a lot for Dak in the intermediate passing game. And they don't even have to use all their weapons to be effective, moving the ball up and down the field and scoring. I still think the defense is probably the Achilles heel, but they've also been super opportunistic. Like they're not stopping the bleeding from a scoreboard perspective consistently, but they're getting sacks and Trayvon Diggs, of course.
Yeah,
gotta talk about,
he's looking so good.
Yeah, got to talk about just like I've never seen a guy be this much of a turnover and ball hawk like this early in the year. Like at this rate and at this pace. It would be incredible if he keeps it up.
He's anchoring their whole defense.
Yeah.
Like, which is bizarre to say about just a cornerback, like a man cover cornerback, but he legit just is.
Yeah,
he's doing everything.
In the modern NFL too. It's crazy. Like,
yeah, I know.
I would have to say, like, if there's one thing that has to give on this Cowboys team, my question is, before I get into my opinion, like, are you sold? Are you buying? Let's not backtrack from our Washington win.
Yeah.
I refuse to do that until week 16, and I don't care if the Cowboys are 4 games ahead of the Washington football team at that point. I will not say that I backtrack on that tape, but. Yeah.
We're never crossing Washington off.
We're never.
That's one of the rules.
Yeah, they play football again next year. We don't have to cross them off.
They're the football team.
But yeah, like, are you sold on the hype, or do you still think it's too early?
I mean, I think there's a lot to like. I'm pretty sold. If I had to choose between sold and not sold, I'm sold that this is a team that makes the playoffs. Like, I feel pretty good about that, if I had to say that now.
Yeah.
I do think there are a couple things that are going, I don't know if they're going under the radar, but the health of the offensive line. Lyle Collins was suspended for 5 games. It feels like that hasn't really mattered. On the defensive line, DeMarcus Lawrence is out with like a broken foot for a long time. Feels like that totally hasn't mattered. I do think DeMarcus Lawrence is overrated. I'm sorry, Pro Football Focus. I know you think he's great, but like, I watch this dude every week, and he stops the run fine, and then he's not in, and they still look good. I don't know. It feels like a little bit of an imposter situation happening. But I think what everybody is kind of. What I certainly thought is that, okay, 1 year, Zach Martin and Tyron Smith just aren't going to have it anymore. You know, they've had too many injuries and they're too old, and they're just like dominating people this year. That's a huge reason why the running game has been as good as it is. It's that O-line is just so good. And, I think at some point Tyron Smith is going to have an inevitable back injury, disc gets out of place or something, and suddenly like it'll look a lot different. That's kind of my big concern. Is like kind of like the Eagles O-line. There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good depth, But if the wrong guy goes down at the wrong
Yep.
time, suddenly it's a house of cards.
Yep. Yeah, I think you hit it spot on. I think you're spot on about the offensive line being a huge building block to this team's early success. I would also say, and what I was going to say before is, if I had to pick one thing to give, it would probably be the defense. I do think that
Yeah.
how good the defense has been, I think, has been a little bit of a mirage. I said that it would be incredible if Trayvon Diggs continues producing at this clip, and I legitimately mean that. I do think at some point he'll
not
probably
credible.
regress. Yeah. And without him getting those turnovers, this easily could have been another, similar to last year, 45-38 Cowboys loss.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
The turnover differential, sorry to interject, is the Cowboys are +7 on the year in turnover differential.
Which is insane.
Yeah, through 4 games. If you're spotted 1.75 turnovers a game, you better be winning,
Yes. Yeah. So for me, it's I think that has to regress at some point. If I'm wrong, then the Cowboys might be one of the best teams in the NFL,
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to take last year happening and then just be okay, I trust this team to be one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah. It's
also,
Sorry,
I think you're fair. I think you're fair to say, is this team pretty much a lock for the playoffs? I mean, compared to the rest of the division, I think it'd be dumb not to buy them as a playoff team at this point.
Yeah.
And I think they're very good. But I'm already seeing finally a Super Bowl worthy Cowboys team, and I'm still
yeah, I don't know. That's just such a foreign. I guess that's just such a foreign concept for me. But
yeah.
I think Dan Quinn is doing a great job. Obviously, as defensive coordinator, you couldn't say otherwise. But I do think that turnover differential is exactly the kind of thing that could sustain itself pretty much throughout the regular season. Maybe not at this pace, but still way one of the leading teams at the end of the year. And then suddenly the first playoff game, it just goes in the opposite direction. And, there's Dak throws an interception and there's a fumble or something. And they just can't get over that hump going the other way,
Yep.
I just need to see them more tested. They need to have more. They need to be put in a really bad situation in a game and still win it. And the Giants are a great team to do that against.
Yeah. Let's talk about Big Blue, baby.
Yeah,
Getting
I
the
guess.
dub.
Yeah.
Getting the dub.
Yeah.
I'll give you my impressions first. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
Through 4 weeks, I have been very high on the Giants' offense. More high than you are, at least. I think it was more good ideas and more execution. I think the offense won the game against the Saints.
I guess. They scored 27 points in 4.5 quarters. It wasn't
But, Jones had a few good passes. They got Saquon involved. I get what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
My problem continues to be I don't trust this defense to help the offense at all, stop the bleeding. If there's one thing that was causing them to lose this game, I think Saints could have easily scored 1 or 2 more at multiple points, and the Saints just didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It feels like kind of a fluky win, but I still think there's stuff working on the Giants. I think, not to get too far ahead, but I do think that this is a sleeper, gotcha game for the Cowboys coming into this game.
Okay. I don't really feel that way, but it's my job to be pessimistic. I think Daniel Jones has looked good so far. I think he kind of is what he is. We talk about it a lot, if he's given time to throw and be calm in the pocket, he's gonna look good. And if he's getting rushed, he's gonna fumble the ball and suddenly be shaky. And it's best to use his legs as the offensive coordinator to get him out of those situations before they happen. I think Garrett's done a better job of that after week 1. Week 2 onwards, kind of just realized, oh, this guy is really fast, and has used that a little bit more. Saquon still looks pretty gun-shy to me. It's starting to get back there. I think it's just a mental thing with him, trusting those legs, but I do think he'll get there. And the offensive line looks good. Andrew Thomas looks pretty good. Everybody else, we missed the Evan Ingram talk, thankfully, last week. I don't think I could have done it last week, man. I don't think I could have. I've said all there is to say. I don't know if we need like a little, like a ban on Ingram talk or something, but it's
we'll release the Ingram supercut at the end of the year.
Thank you.
We always do.
Yeah,
and
right.
then that will be our one comment of it.
It's just I was right, and I've always been right. That's the key.
Yeah, it's weird for me to say because it's like the defense was what was carrying the team last year in like a really scrappy underdog type of way. But I think the offense is carrying the defense this year. And they're still not good, but I like, if they had a good offensive line, even with the same skill position players, I think this offense would be pretty good. I think DJ is good, maybe paired with like a little bit more of a progressive offensive coordinator. They have pieces, which is like, I think the reason why they won. I don't think a truly bad offense could score 27 in that game against the Saints.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I got to ask you because you weren't here to add.
Yeah. I'm a man of my word.
Was your silent protest a tacit endorsement of the impeach David Gettleman campaign? Are you on that side of the fence? Do you want to see him forcibly removed from his post?
I am the January 6th rioters and terrorists. But for David Gettleman.
You're the stop the steal of David Gettleman? Give us back our New York Giants.
Yes. I'm so out. Even after a win.
I know it was bold of me to even ask you after a W to like bring you back down this rabbit hole.
This is what happens. This is the everybody has to be happy all the time thing.
Yeah.
Suddenly Giants fans are going to convince themselves, oh my God, like Gettle Goat, as he's infrequently but occasionally referred to.
The fact that even leaked out into the ether is
it's bad sign.
Shameful.
Bad sign. It's like, okay, yeah, Andrew Thomas looks good, Daniel Jones looks good, and it's like you just missed the forest for the trees. Like the depth talent just has never been there. It's still not there, and it's clear that I mean, again, like, can you look at this Giants team and honestly tell me, like, yeah, they're gonna win? They're gonna have a winning record this year. Like, is there any chance of that? No. Right. There's not, and for that reason, I'm crossing them off. Which I did. Yes.
Whoa!
Yes.
Whoa!
Yes.
After a win?
Well, I would have crossed them off last week, but I had to organize certain activities.
Is there like a New York Giants version of Parler you're on? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's Big Blue View. Yeah.
Oh man, that's incredible. Crossing them off. I refuse. I refuse. I'm not going to be wrong about them. I think they're going to be better than the Eagles by the end of the year at this point.
That could be possible. I still don't really truly believe it. I think for me, just to center back, this is a lot of Giants talk, so I'll try to wrap this up now. But like, I'd have more faith in the defense getting better as the year goes along, like we expect Washington's to.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened last year, and I just think that's part of like getting Graham's scheme every offseason. Except Blake Martinez has a torn ACL, and I don't think they don't have anybody else who's experienced enough to hold that defense play calling together.
Yeah,
they're just a little disoriented there. So I'm just very pessimistic. You literally said you can't imagine them being a winning team. And I also think the second part of me crossing them off is just it seems clear that at least two teams in the division are a cut above. Washington and Dallas, I think, are just better, barring some sort of catastrophic injury to both. I think.
I mean, also,
I don't see the Giants winning it.
I don't want to make us seem weak in our takes this early, but I would argue, like, Washington has already had their catastrophic injury, which is Ryan Fitzpatrick. And even though he wasn't looking good in week 1, I trust that he would have rounded out. He might have actually, like, a good Ryan Fitzpatrick could have had this team at 3-1, I think.
It's possible.
Through 4 weeks.
It's possible.
Like, I don't think we're that off about. I think we were both off about Dallas and Washington. We were right about them being the cut above in the division.
Yeah.
But maybe we took away 2 or 3 games from Dallas that maybe they've worked themselves back into the conversation.
Yeah.
To deserving, while we gave Washington 2 or 3 games maybe they shouldn't have gotten in our heads.
Yeah.
And
I think our predictions have been pretty fine. Like, I think Washington's ceiling is still legit, and I just don't see that with the Giants. You know, and just not present for me. So I'm crossing them off, which technically I would have done after last week, but I'm still willing to do it after a win.
Wow. I can't do it. I don't want to be. There's a part of me that doesn't want to be. I would actually. It's not that I'm scared to be wrong. I want to be
optimistic about what this team can be. It's very.
No, I want to be. I want to be right. I want to rub it in your face. Like, you're wrong.
But you said they'd be 5-12. You don't think they're good either. That's like the part that I'm like confused about.
But at least that's like a bullshit like preseason pick. Like, I am now.
But they're 1-3. They're literally on pace to be 4-13 or 5-12. They're marching steadily towards.
They are. They're performing exactly as we've predicted. And yet I still am refusing to cross the line.
Right. We have no new evidence to suggest optimism, and yet you're optimistic. But I like that we're not on exactly the same page here.
Hey, you know what? You know what the reason for optimism is? They're going to beat the Cowboys this week. They're going to beat the Cowboys 27-21. I'm predicting that right now. That's what's going to happen.
I love this take. I think that this is going to be ugly, and it's going to be something like 38-20, and one of those is going to be a garbage Giants touchdown.
You know, part of the reason why I'm doing this too is to give the listeners an update. This year, I have been betting a 5-team parlay every week with my picks on this podcast, plus my pick on the Sunday night game. And there's been one team that has broke all 3, and it is the New York Football Giants. And there's part of my strategy is to go against my intuition and bet chaos at this point, because the Giants have given me nothing. The Giants have given me nothing but chaos this entire season, and I'd rather have them break another parlay with me choosing the chaos that they are, as opposed to them breaking it being guided by pure rationality, given how the season is starting. And it's a divisional game. Like, there's always a weird divisional game that happens, you know? And I think Dallas is riding too high. This is still the NFC East. They're not the Chiefs. The Dallas Cowboys are not the Kansas City Chiefs.
You're talking me into this way too easily. The vibes are out of control. It does make too much sense for the Dallas to win this game, and therefore they won't. You're right. You're right. I'm gonna stick with my pick just because, but it does totally. This is the trap game of trap games. Yeah,
week 5, especially this early in the season, where like every team is a little bit chaotic still. Like, to me, this has trap game written all over it. I'm probably gonna be wrong. They're probably gonna break it again, but hey, at least I stuck by my guns and
go down with the shit, man.
Exactly. I'll tell you what, if they break it again, I'm crossing them off next week. That is like.
I love that. I do think they have to be a cross off next week if they lose, especially because Dallas will be 4-1.
No, it'll be a simultaneously like me logically crossing off a 1-4 team that I predicted to go 5-12, and a rage cross off.
Yeah. Man,
I was in a state. I was in a state when the Giants broke that parlay.
I got the angriest text I've ever gotten from you about anything. Anything. We talk about a lot of different stuff, including some controversial stuff like does Tony die in The Sopranos? But man.
It was you have to put yourself in my shoes. I was at a music festival, and I checked the scores at halftime, and I see the Saints 2 scores ahead of the Giants, and the Falcons 2 scores ahead of Washington. And I had bet the Saints would win and that Washington would win. So in the back of my head, it's like, oh, the Saints are taking care of business. Yeah. I just have to pay attention to Washington to make sure they don't screw my parlay. Right?
Yeah.
Literally, I'm staring at Antonio Gibson score the game-winning touchdown. I start celebrating and then look at the scores again and see that the Giants have beaten the Saints in overtime. And I am like, how has this team that I have watched for 3 straight weeks lose in spectacular fashion?
Right, they're allergic to win. They're allergic.
Yes. And you texted me, I can't wait to see how the Giants lose this game. Yeah. Like, even though they were close. All they did was attract L's.
I texted you that right before overtime started. It was tied. I was like, I know they're going to lose. And I was wrong for once. Because usually my thing every week is to text you with like 2 minutes left as the Giants theoretically have a chance in some way. They either need to make a game-winning drive or a game-winning stop. And I always text you, and I'm like, how are they going to blow it this time? And it always happens. This time I was wrong.
Agents of Chaos on the feet of Danny Dimes.
Are they the most NFC East team?
Right now, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they're the mantle holder for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you got a take? You got a take for take around the league?
I don't really. I'm sorry.
I got one.
I have no idea what's happening in the NFL.
Well, I got one in the form of probably the only thing you need to know about what's going on in the NFL.
Yeah.
I haven't found the right metaphor for this yet. But, like, Urban Meyer is, like, the most popular softball dad in your town growing up. He's like that entire energy. So, if you don't know, the Jaguars got very close to firing Urban Meyer today because he skipped flying back with the team from their loss against the Browns and instead drove to a sports bar he owned in Columbus, and a video of him getting grinded on by like a 40-year-old blonde at his own steakhouse in the town he used to coach college football in leaked onto the internet. And then he canceled Monday's practice and apologized to the team. And apparently the entire Jaguars 53-man roster laughed at him when he left the room.
Dude, it's got to be like, first of all, is there like a more obvious, like, I miss my ex move than to go
That's
back?
What I'm saying. It's like,
You're right.
Like, you know that, like, really, like, has a huge... Okay, like the kind of like dad that is like super popular and charismatic, like has a big ego, but ultimately like his whole identity is wrapped up in being that. And the minute he doesn't have it, he just like becomes a husk of a man. You know what I mean?
We will
just
take
like
listeners
that kind of like you know, like almost about to be divorced or like recently divorced, like upper middle class white dude guy. You know what I mean? Like that kind of guy. You know.
We will take listener-submitted depictions of who this guy is in artistic form.
Yeah, the kind.
I do. I do.
Like,
I do. There's
like,
there's no real life person that you can point to, obviously, but
yeah, like a church leader guy.
Yes, that's where I thought you were going to go with this.
Yeah,
like the charismatic, like Baptist Bible youth pastor type.
Yeah,
yeah. I think a lot of football guys are probably like that, especially the college ones.
Yeah,
which is what Urban is for sure.
Exactly, and he kind of conned his way into like I don't know, like how much did he really do at Ohio State? Really?
Oh yeah, that's actually. Sometimes I wish we had some college football tapes, but I never watch, so I don't. Yeah. I do think he is so full of it that he's had like these heart issues or whatever when he wants to like leave a job, like without getting like hate for it. It's the softest thing of all time. I don't think these heart issues are real. That's my take. I'll think back up.
God damn it! How dare you beat me? It's my own game.
Urban Meyer has like the chronic Lyme of like football coach diseases. I don't know if it's like the Morgellons.
Oh fuck!
It's
man.
not real.
Holy shit, dude. All right, that's an incredible note to end on. Urban Meyer's chronic heart issue is fake.
Yes.
All right, I love it. Hey, send us your suggestions of what kind of man in your hometown community you think Urban Meyer is. At nfcleastmailbag@gmail.com. Rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and also join our Discord. Give us a follow on Twitter at nfcleastpod. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
super fun times.
Stay tuned for my secret email regarding very important connections that we must make for the project. Capital project.
What steakhouse in North Jersey do you think you can successfully corner Dave Gettleman in?
What is the North Jersey version of like the January 6th situation? Like just like yelling at somebody out of their car as they drive by, like what? Because it's not actually violent or like insurrectionary, but it is like, hey, like what the hell? You know, like, what?
No, I think it's like clearly stalking whatever deli Gettleman goes to in the morning, and then just forcibly, imposing
just
yourself
like
in front of there. You know, and then possibly also taking over the deli too. Like I'm the owner of this deli now.
It's just a line of 600 overweight 55-year-old North Jersey guys stepping into the deli, shaking their head dismissively at Gettleman's like sandwich order, and then walking out.
You got to let me know how that plan comes together, man. All right. Until next time, I'll talk to you next week, buddy.
See you, pal.